Welcome to the Mom Boss Podcast, the show where motherhood meets business and everything in between. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to the Mom Boss Podcast. I'm your host, Bailey Gordon. I want to introduce you to Karina Beck with Light and Armour Photography. She is a mom of 3. She's an adventure photographer. Her work is stunning. You absolutely have to check her out and you have to book with her sometime. She is also an educator. She's a military spouse and a total ray of sunshine. So I'm super happy to have her in the room with us today. It's really, really cool. And yeah, Karina, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us a little bit of an introduction, talk about your kids, your husband, stuff like that.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. I am Karina Beck, Light and Armour Photography, and I started Light and Armour in 2017-ish. It was after my second born was born, and we had just moved to Germany, and I don't know, in the spirit of military, and you've probably heard this story before, I just wanted to take pictures of my kids, and the rest was history.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I am a mom of 3. I have Thea, Cadman, and Jude, and they are 10, 8, and almost 6. And I am in denial about that.
Absolutely.
My baby is not 6. Like, all 3 of my kids started school, like, a completely new season of life.
Absolutely. You are in a new era of motherhood.
Yeah.
Also, you've been a mom for a decade. Let that sink in.
Like, her birthday was in January, and which it's February right now, and yeah, I was a mess. It didn't hit me like all day, and then that night when I went and like scrolled through my phone and looking at the memories, I'm like, oh my gosh, my baby is in double digits, and then she's a teenager. Crazy. And like Tim and I, my husband's Tim, we've been married. We just celebrated 13 years.
Crazy.
And we got married when I was 18. My daughter could be married in 8 years, like longer.
Yeah, she's getting close to the age where you got married. That is crazy. You were just a baby.
Yeah, and then like I had her when I was 21, and so I was also telling Tim, I'm like, we could be grandparents in the next decade. Like I hope we're not grandparents in the next decade, but like,
yeah, like that's really your trajectory.
Scary.
Yeah,
like this next decade is really scary when you like. And then just another thing to like put out there, I was taking the kids to school, and I was like, guys, do you ever think about the fact that we'll know each other more as adults than as you guys right now as kids?
Yeah.
That like you guys are kids right now and because they're in such a hurry to grow up. And
yeah.
I'm like, don't worry about all these things. Just be a kid. Just like be in the moment. And they're just looking at me like, so stupid. And I'm like, guys, like I've known my parents like this.
Yeah.
It's just a really weird revelation to have because like I just remember being in the thick of toddlerhood and like I didn't have that. There was no way. And you hear like, cheers.
Yeah. You get 18 summers.
Yeah. And you're just like, I just need to make it through the next hour, let alone think about. But
oh my gosh, I would love for you to touch on that because, you know, a lot of people, you're actually like, so you're younger than me. You have been a parent longer than me. So it's pretty fun because I'm in that toddler phase. I'm not in the young toddler phase. I'm headed towards the light. But it's interesting, like you've gone through the really young toddler phases. You've gone through the 5-6-year-old phase. That's a whole phase in itself.
It is.
You're entering the preteen phase.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, 1, are any of the phases specifically your favorite? And 2, what would you tell parents? There's a bird that is like just trying to have a conversation with us right now.
I bet it's a mama bird.
It is a mom. She's like, I'm a mom boss too. I'm out here building nests and stuff. Okay. But yeah, I'm curious if you have any advice for moms who are in that beginning phases of motherhood that you know, as they're going through like, hey, you've got this. Like what kinds of advice would you give them or as you're looking back?
Yeah. So I think my favorite phase. So each of my kids have been so different, which is like so cliche to say, but like it's true. They are like they all 3 have very high energy, and if you've met my kids, you know that I'm not being dramatic when I say that. They are like little whirls of tornadoes. I've always called them a force of nature. Like and we never had like they never napped. Like my kids, I never had that like nap time. They have slept through the night, but like when they are up, they are ready to go. And that literally, like my daughter in particular, she's my firstborn. She like, I want to say she stopped napping at like 10 months, like
No,
one. Like I think she's always been in such a hurry to grow up.
Yeah.
And so like for favorite stages, like right now, she like, I feel like we just, for her in particular, and just like with me being so young, having her, we've like grown up together. And I tell her that all the time. I'm like, I'm sorry I've gotten so much wrong with you, but thank you for just being who you are. And she's just had so many life changes, you know, so she in particular has lived here in Washington and then El Paso, Texas, Germany, and North Carolina, and then back to Washington.
Wow.
And so she like, that's a lot of life change
Yeah.
for a kid. And then add in 2 more brothers, and then add in like, my husband's work schedule has just been crazy being military. So he's been deployed. He actually wasn't here for her birth. I mean, not that like in the silver linings of things, we were always like, well, we'd rather this happen now rather than later because we think about him deploying now. And I'm like, that's going to suck. Like because they know what they're missing.
Yeah.
But
well, how did you feel about him being missing the birth?
Yeah, I just feel like
your first, like that was your first. You were 21 years old. You're having your first baby.
And she was breech. So, and we tried the version where like and she went right back up. I remember feeling her, and then she went right back up. Like I thought doing that.
Yeah.
And so I had a C-section, and I mean, I just feel like in a lot of ways it was I didn't know what I didn't know,
Right.
and so it was like he's not here. You know, I'm an independent lady,
Yeah.
so like it was.
Yeah, and wait, no, I was going to try and spell it. INDEPENDENT.
Yeah, no, but I had a lot of support with my mother-in-law and then my mom, and just like, you know, people knowing that I was by myself, and like I had worked. So before photography, I worked at DaVita and their kidney dialysis company. And so I worked at the corporate office, and I remember they like had spoiled me with a few things. And so it was like I had felt really, I had all the support that I needed. I mean, yeah, it would have been great having my husband, the baby daddy, but you know, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
And then having him for the second and third, it was like,
wow,
this is amazing. But then each of my births have been so different that I don't know, I feel like kind of lucky in that way too. I've had a C-section, I've had an epidural, and then I've had an all natural, no pain medicine. And I just feel really fortunate that I just have all of these little pieces of that like makes my story. And I don't know, but I know I'm really good at making side quests. So back to your original question.
I love side quests. That's like the whole, that should be the name of the podcast, like side quests with mom bosses. Yes. That's absolutely,
And my favorite stage right now with my daughter is just this stage right now. Like her, like having her own, like she's really like, with all these life changes, I just feel like she just had whiplash with so many things. And now she's always been unapologetically herself, but now it's in conjunction with a relationship with me where like I feel like, which is so silly, but like we butt heads a lot. And so now that she's older, I feel like this brought us closer because like she is finally grown into herself, and she's not this little tiny tantrum machine. And then with the boys, I don't know, every season has just, I feel like I'm really going to enjoy the teenage years, which is probably not something that a lot of people say, but just seeing them grow into these like humans of like between sports and like their smarts and their just everything that they like, just seeing that like, okay, I'm doing something. Right? Like something's going right here. Like they're doing the things like, it's just like so much pride. And like before, you know, as toddler, it's like, oh my gosh, they know the color blue. Freaking heck, yeah. Like I taught them colors. Like, so those
now you're like, I taught them kindness. And it's like you get to see that.
Yeah. And just like, and like the team building and like, I don't know, all of that. It's just like, it's a proud mom.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. I mean, you nailed it. It's like, I mean, you kind of said this without saying it, but you sort of said the season that you're in. You've kind of, you're enjoying the season you're in. And that's probably what you've done a little bit throughout their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, parenting 3 kids. And I'm curious, I want you to talk a little bit more about being a military spouse and, you know, Tim. And I mean, obviously social media, what we see on social media, like he's very involved, and that's awesome. And I'm curious, like, how things go as a military spouse, a military family, and actually I have a bunch of questions about it, but let's just start with kind of the base, like what it's like.
The basis of it all is that I'm gonna go back to the beginning. So we were little 18 and 19-year-old Karina and Tim, and we're like, we want to get married. We had literally been dating for 6 months.
And he was already in the military.
He wasn't.
Okay.
So it was really funny. I was in high school and he was just a year older than me. And once I graduated, he had proposed. And then we always joke, I had a senior trip. I was going to Spain, and we always joke that he proposed. I wouldn't fall in love with like a Spaniard, but
smart.
And then we were planning this like big extravagant wedding. We were going to save up. We were going to wait like the next summer, maybe 2 summers or whatever. But then we just like felt so convicted that the end of the year, and I accepted Jesus into my heart, and I just felt like we were already living together. I was like, how can I be a Christ follower and a Christian and already be in so much sin? Like it just felt, I have really had problems with that. So then we were like, do we just get married? Like, does that actually change anything? And I was at UW Seattle, and as an 18-year-old, I was like, if we get married, are you going to mess up my loans? Like, what does this mean for
what does this mean for my loan?
What does this mean for me? And so it was just like all of those like real life things. But we were like, you know what? We'll figure it out. So we got married. It was like an ice storm. So we said I do. I wasn't pregnant. He wasn't in the military. We just were like, we're it. Like we just knew. And I had a lot of people, our families were totally supportive, but there was a lot of people in my life and in his life that was like, what are you doing? And totally get it. If Thea is like, I'm gonna get married at 18, like I don't know.
Are you sure?
Yeah, like any of the kids, not just Thea. She's
she's the oldest. She's the closest to that. So
yeah. But so after a year and a half, 2 years, he was like, I've always wanted to join the army or the military. Like I've had this call, and we both were making pretty good money for teenagers, like, which is crazy. Like we had our own apartment. Like we just kind of, from the beginning, just did everything on our own, and not for any fault of like our parents. We could have stayed home. We were just like, we're going to do this. And so he joined the military, and then we've lived in Oklahoma, Texas, Kimberly said before, Germany, North Carolina, and we started having babies. Thea was not planned. Cadman was planned because I was like, I didn't want to have kids in Germany. And so I was like, let's have these babies back to back. They're 20 months apart. And then Jude was a surprise. And he's our Germany baby. So
that's so funny.
Jokes on us. But and just with all the moves and the babies and everything, like Tim's always been super involved, and he is just such a great dad. Like we are a really good team when it comes to parenting and just everything. And those first 5 years, I had just given so much of myself to everything. And like, I did struggle with PPD and just being in Germany. Germany's a lot like Washington. So a lot of people struggle with the lack of vitamin D and no sun, but I'm like, this is home. Like we went there after El Paso, but so the doctors were like, well, you just have seasonal depression. I'm like, no, this is comfort. I love this. But it was definitely all the babies.
Well, I mean, you had a lot of babies.
And then I breastfed each baby for well over a year. And so like, that is another, like, I was realizing that like when you wean, that can cause like a hormone storm of whatever. And so then that can be a new, I don't know. There's so much. And then also I had Guillain-Barré randomly, and that's where like your feet just stopped working, and it could have been a lot worse, but like I was in the hospital for 5 days. I couldn't walk. That was scary. It was all these crazy things. And what like the theme was, I was getting closer and closer to starting photography. That's like my side quest of like, I remember when I started photography, I was just like, oh my gosh. And at first, it wasn't the intent of starting a business. I was just taking pictures of my kids. And then somebody was like, you're pretty good with the camera. Can you take? I'm like, no.
Classic.
Exactly.
Classic how I started my business story.
And then I was just like, I joked. I was like, I could be a potato at this, but like there's literally a castle in the background. Like, nobody's going to care how good or not good the photographer is. And so I was like,
there's a castle. Come on. I'm basically like
Germany. And so that's where the business started. But just with having like I started with my second, so then I would eventually get pregnant and then have a third and then special needs and then a move and then my husband deployed and then, like there's too much to fit into this
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
pod
This
for
is a
all of
3-hour
the yeah,
podcast. Yeah.
like there's
We need
too
a part
much.
2.
Yeah, but just like Tim, like those first 5 years was really me being present with the kids and I had tried to be present with my business, but like I ended up taking a break about almost a year off between 2019 to 2020. And that was before the whole pandemic and everything. It was just because we had an international move. I had 3 kids. I knew nobody in North Carolina. My husband deployed, all of these things. And that was the best thing, just having rest and being present with my babies. And then I got to take photos of them.
Yeah.
And I have all these beautiful photos from that period of time. And I'm just like, oh, I'm so glad I gave myself that gift of not just rest, but also this beautiful art of my babies. Like that's what a lot of us mom, but like for photography in particular, like we just want pictures of our kids. And then I hear often that we get too busy and then we don't have any photos of our kids. And like, what a shame that is.
Yeah.
And like, I struggle with that, taking pictures of them now, but they're also older. It's a little different.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's such a good perspective. Like that's actually one of the questions that I wanted to ask was talking about moms who are in that early phase and they're torn between spending time on their business and spending time with their kids specifically and their family. And I was going to ask you like how you navigated that. So that's really interesting that you kind of naturally brought that up.
Yeah. Well, and to begin with, like I really tried to be a photographer and a mom with toddlers. And I just failed miserably. And not necessarily like I wasn't charging enough. I wasn't. And that was, I don't know, maybe this is like a taboo thing to bring up, but photography was a really heated topic in our house for my marriage because I was living, breathing, working and bringing no money. And I mean, I was bringing money, but like when you think about all the time I spent, and then when we got our bill, because we lived in Germany and the state that we lived in Germany, I filed taxes through Germany. So I ended up owing more than I made. And so like, it was just it was like, oh, like,
deflating.
Like I just spent all this work. And then like the clients were great, but at the same time, it's like at that price point, there's a lot that I still do keep in touch with, but there are a lot where like I have no idea where they are. I don't remember their names. And that's not any fault to them or me. I was just a means to an end because of the price point. And like I miss out on so many moments of my kids being younger, like in that particular period because I wanted to mom boss. Like in the hustle culture, you know? And I just like that move and that break was almost like forced upon me. And I'm so glad it was because I just, it's a shame that I felt like I had to do all these things. And it wasn't, I mean, we were at that point in our story, we weren't making a lot of money. And Germany is really hard for a lot of military families because there's not a lot of employment opportunities for spouses. And if there were employment opportunities, there's even less opportunity for childcare. So like that is just a massive, I mean, at least in the village where we live, that was a huge thing. And so we just didn't have money. And like I thought I was helping. And you know, all these things like you think you're doing what you need to do, but then in hindsight, you're like, chill out. Like go just snuggle here, like go to the park and like it all works out. It all works out.
I think that's that's so good because I mean, even I'm going through a funny part in my business, like as a photographer and somebody who's like, my income needs to be a little bit larger if I'm going to be spending my time away from my kids. Because it's so important and vital to me to be home. That's why I did this. That's why I became a photographer is because like I'm home because I want to spend time with my kids, but also I want to be a mom, but I also want to be a boss. I love working.
Same.
Like I love my job. Like
I am like type A, Enneagram 3. Like I am so and like if you would have told me, I mean, a decade ago, I guess we're getting closer to a decade. I don't know, even a decade. I've only been in business for 7 years. That I would be a photographer. I would have been like,
really?
That's just like that's not how my brain used to work.
Yeah.
I am so, in a lot of ways, like kind of black and white, and like the creativity really took me a long time to like, even now I don't consider, like, I consider myself a problem solver, not necessarily creative.
Interesting.
And I
Yeah.
know problem solving, I've learned, is a creative avenue. So like I can see that now. But
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I think that's why I'm so great at adventure photography, because nature gives you, like, you just I work with what's available, and then I get to problem solve through it
Yeah.
with my clients. And whereas like put me in a studio, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like I can do it,
Yeah.
but I see other photographers that go in a studio and they just like make this like magic. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, my brain does not work that way. Like
Yeah.
this is so cool to see that you
Yeah.
somehow created this.
Right.
And so I don't know where I was going with
Well,
that,
that's super
but
cool. Well, I mean, like, it is super cool. Like, your work is really beautiful. And it's so funny that, like, you do work a lot in nature. But not only is the nature beautiful, but like the composition of your photos, the coloring, the emotion that you do get out of the images. I mean, like, it's very, 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 very good. So don't sell yourself short there, okay? So anyway, yeah, just make sure that you realize in yourself, like, okay, yes, I am a creative. Like, even though I love that you called yourself a problem solver, because that is a little bit about what our job is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
And especially as moms too. Like
yes.
it's constantly like, and that's what I work with families, like
Yeah.
that's I would consider that my bread and butter,
Yeah.
my niche. And
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
every family is different. Each
Yeah.
dynamic is different. Even if like different person, like even if a family has similar personalities, it's still different. And
Even the same
then,
family year after year is
yeah,
different.
like a half an hour later.
Yes. Even the same family with a snack and without a snack.
Like completely different.
Yes.
So figuring out, okay, what will work and what won't work.
Yes.
And I can thank you so much for all those compliments.
Yes.
Words of affirmation.
Yes.
I am very proud of what I've been able to create.
Yeah.
And like just like growing up in Washington, I feel like we see a lot of really talented photographers, and like in our community, I just felt like being a photographer was like this romantic idea that like that wasn't for me. Like I'm not that cool to be this person. And so it's really, I remember when I first started doing education and seeing my name in certain places, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is full circle. Like I didn't think somebody like me with my background, like I just felt like nobody like could be, I don't know, in a sphere of influence. Like it's just really cool to gain that confidence and that.
Yeah. That's absolutely what it is. Yeah. Gaining that confidence to be able to educate and feel find your space.
Yeah, I do know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I do know what I'm saying.
Also, like my biggest advice, I don't know, I feel like I get like asked a lot, how do you create this like genuine connection in your imagery? Like it's not necessarily that question, but I do like
That's
a lot of like the
how you see
sentiment
it.
of that. And really it's just like do less. Like families don't need 50 prompts. They don't need you to be like the coolest and the most up to date and the most hip and the most whatever. They just need you to be present, and they need them to be the priority.
Yeah.
And I just think if you take a step back, and another thing is, well, when I do that, then they get quiet and they don't know what to do. And I'm like, that's okay. Let them like figure it out too. Cause a lot of the times families haven't done this either. They're used to showing up, saying cheese.
Yeah.
And like, that's the experience. And I just remind them that like, there's no wrong way to show up in front of my camera. I don't care what they do. I mean, well,
Yeah.
and as long as everybody's safe, no, like, in these adventure spots, like there's some runners, and I'm like, just make sure we're not by any cliffs, please.
Yeah.
And thank you. My contract, no.
You're like, no,
I love you
thank
guys.
you.
I love you guys too much, please.
Yes.
And that hasn't been an issue.
Yeah.
But still, like, that's in the back of my mind. Like, we're in nature. You have no idea.
Yeah.
And so,
Totally.
but also, I just want them to be.
Yep.
Like, I don't want them to be what I want them to be. I just want them, when they look at their photos, they recognize themselves. They can say, this is my family, and I'm super proud of that. Yeah. And that's what I want to create.
Oh, I love that. Well, and, I was going to ask, you started your business after becoming a mom. How has motherhood affected your business and how you've, one, built your business, and two, how you engage with your client?
It's tough. So starting the business as a mom, I feel like I already had that perspective of just I've always worked with families. And so that familiarity of like my kids didn't nap and they're a little grumpy. Like, yeah, I get that. I've been through like I'm in that season now, or now I can say I remember those. Well, not that my kids ever napped.
I remember those days when when they were 10 months old and stopped napping.
Stop napping. Yeah. And I just think that motherhood just continues to shape the fact that these moments are so priceless. And I think something that I'm realizing in this next season too, just that family sessions are no less important or less extraordinary as weddings, as newborn photos, as branding, as whatever. And I know that there's a case to be made for everything, like weddings, once in a life situation. I get that. That like on its own, people are willing to pay for that and they're willing to like, that's important.
Yes.
Newborn photos. You get 10 days of them being teeny tiny. Like that's their own window. That's once in a lifetime, literally also once in a lifetime situation going to happen. But I think that same philosophy is for families. Like once your kids start growing, you realize that like each season is literally once in a lifetime. It's special and it should be celebrated. And family photography is like, it's important.
Yeah.
And
why does it make me emotional?
and just like I'm gonna start crying now. Just seeing like my daughter turning 10 and like seeing how fast everything goes by. Like I think that I've had it just with motherhood, how motherhood has affected everything because you want, I think another hot topic. Hot topic is pricing and price points and just like how do you make a livable wage? And how do you justify the prices you're charging? And you might think everybody, I've heard, everybody deserves to have photos. You're absolutely right. And there's options for everybody. But also when you're a professional photographer, this is a luxury. This is time from our day. It's time from their day too. Like they're investing in their time. They're taking the thought process and I don't know, when I go and do my own family photos, it's a lot.
It is a lot.
Like we should place value on who we're working with.
Absolutely.
And be proud of these moments. And I just think motherhood has made me really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, this has been my adult life. Like this is what I know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I love that you said that because you kind of have to set boundaries as a business owner, specifically as a mom. Yeah. And I love that you kind of brought up the pricing. I know that it is taboo. I'd love to talk about, you have grown your business this year and you've taken some really scary leaps.
Yeah.
I'd love if you are willing to talk a little bit about how you've gotten to, can I say it?
Yeah.
6 figures as a business owner. Like you deserve you deserve a round of applause because as a photographer, as a family photographer, it's very difficult. And 6 figures, that's like a huge deal, but also that's kind of where we got to get to, like as photographers to live.
Yeah.
It is.
And I so scary, like, oh my gosh, I did this. But still at the end of the day, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to make more.
No, yeah. To literally live.
And just pay the taxes and the fees and the ongoing,
that's what people don't get. They don't understand that 6 figures, that's not necessarily
and that was my gross income. Yeah. So that wasn't a goal definitely is to get to 6 figure take home.
Yes.
And that's another thing. When I saw the number, I was like, oh my gosh, I did it. And then I went and still working through taxes.
30% set aside for taxes. And
and the 6 figures is not
Yes. Yes.
But it was definitely a huge goal and huge success last year to do that. It was in pretty much family sessions.
Yeah.
I have a few weddings and elopements but that's, and when I get inquiries, I'm like, this isn't my bread and butter, but I will do it if you like this perspective.
Yeah.
And so it's been cool finding clients who do that too. But can you repeat the question?
I had no question.
Okay.
I don't know. I think the question was basically celebrate that win.
Yeah.
And
I know.
I can't remember. You're talking to the queen of not I'm remembering what I said. So
I just think that I have been so stubborn, which I don't necessarily recommend this, but I've been so stubborn with how I've grown my business. And I paid for one course that I can think of. And then I never took it because I felt guilty. I felt like I was I felt like I was losing my authenticity. And then I'd known that I wanted to be an educator at some point. And I was like, I want to be able to say that I've done this on my own. So like, I haven't had a business coach. I've just gleaned everything I possibly could from like Profitable Non-IPS Facebook group. They've been around for so long, and I've just like made it my job at one point to go through threads and read from people who've been doing this a lot longer than me. And then also finding other groups like Meg DePiro has a Facebook group. I think it's called Level Up, something along those.
Yeah.
And that group is like also insanely inspiring for like the big ticket winning, I don't know, just like how photographers are making a livelihood and what they're doing to like make that happen. And so just kind of gleaning from all of that. But then also somebody local who like I have to shout her out, and I get her name wrong every time, and I'm so sorry. I have practiced saying your name, I still can't say it right. Jamie Bertel? Sorry, girl. I tried. But it's Jamie Bertel Photography, and she's been like the biggest hype girl for me also for raising prices, and she's living what she's telling me to do, which I think is always also important, that they're not just, you don't just have a birdie in your ear saying for you to do something, but then they don't ever do it.
Yeah.
And so like she's already like 5, and she just started too. Like she just, that's another podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Yeah. She can come on the show.
But no, I just think that like having that support that pushed me, that like, hey, you are making beautiful work. You are providing this experience. You need to be charging more.
Yeah.
But and so then I started like, okay, what can I tweak? What do I feel good about? Because I do think that at the end of the day, everybody's business is so personal and so intrinsically different. Like you can't just be like, hey, do this because I'm doing it and you'll make 6 figures. Like, that's not how it works. So you have to figure out, you need to be proud and confident of what your collections are, and then realizing like, how many do I actually have to do to make it there? And is that even possible? If it's not possible, well, you might have to raise your prices, or you have to figure out, okay, if I'm not willing to raise my prices, how am I going to make this extra income? And can I do that under my umbrella of photography? Because there's so much that you can do with photography.
Yeah.
And like last year, I did do some supplementary like income with, I did preschool photos, like class photos. And then I dabbled in a few different things that I was like, no, what am I? And that all led to making what I did. I don't know if I'll be doing the same thing this year, but it was exciting. Like I hadn't tried something new in so long. I'm like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Also, I wanted to kind of touch on, you had mentioned like finding a price point that like supports your livelihood. And you also mentioned earlier in the podcast, you talked about how you were working so much and working and living and breathing your work. And it was causing kind of like marital issues and like stress, and you were basically taking nothing home. I think it's so important to touch on the fact that making money is not a bad thing. Wanting to make more money is not a bad thing. And we learned it at Live 2025 that when women have money and when women have wealth, the world is a better place because we spend money, we put it back into the economy. We also are smarter with our money, things like that. That was amazing. Stephanie, like that was an amazing presentation by Stephanie, like shout out Stephanie. But I wanted to kind of point that out because it is so common for photographers to find that burnout because they are undercharging, over delivering, and essentially like running themselves into the ground because they are not finding, like you said, finding the perfect packages and that the price point that works for them for the amount of shoots that they want to do. I mean, gosh, finding that balance. So how did you work through like, okay, here I have this big goal. How many shoots did you want to do? Kind of what was your, if you don't mind sharing, like kind of what was your process and how can you, and let's kind of look at the scope beyond photography and think about it from just an overall point of view for somebody who's looking to make a livelihood in their business. Go ahead.
To begin with, in 2021, that was the year that I wasn't pregnant. I wasn't breastfeeding. We weren't moving. My husband wasn't deployed. He wasn't going to be deployed. 2021, when we were going into it, I was like, this is the most stable year that I'm going to get like in a really long time probably. And I'm just like, I asked my husband, and like, he's always been so supportive. And that's what made the frustration really hard for me because he is supportive. He's always been so supportive of everything. And so he was just like, you can't keep doing this. And I'm like, yeah, I can. But I couldn't. He was right. And so 2021, I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I have to do this right, because my marriage is obviously more important than a photography business. And my kids are more important. Like, so in 2021, I don't remember what my prices were, but they're a fraction of what they were now. And I remember my goal was $40,000. I was like, if I can make $40,000, I'm doing something right. That's all I wanted to make in 2021. And I ended up making just under 60, which was like insane. And that was just with small changes. Like I'd really implemented soft proofs, and I have a course on that. And that is just where you're not giving, it's not an all-inclusive price. You are saying like, this session fee includes 10 photos. If you want more, you can do more, and so on. And so just realizing that, like, you don't have to, if you are struggling with charging more, you don't have to give as much. Like, if you want a smaller entry point, that's fine. Just give less. And people will still want to work with you if you are showing up authentically and being there for your business. And that's not just photography. And so I do remember, so in 2021, my base package was $375 for 10 photos. I had other packages. I don't remember what they were. My most booked package was $375 for 10. And then a lot of people upgraded. And so all in would be like just over 500. And somehow that got me to to that price point. But I was working.
You probably had to do a lot of shoots to get to that.
I was working a lot. And so in 2022, we moved to Washington, and I was like, I can't lose this momentum. Like, I finally had a year where I could, you
had your stable year.
And then, and at some point that year, we realized we were moving, and I was like typical military story. You get, you get too comfortable, and then you move. And so I was like, I'm going to do this, but if I do this, I have to raise my prices. So then I raised my prices when I got to Washington. And I was like, I want to show that, like, I can do what I say I know how to do. And that was, I felt really confident with how to remarket myself after moving. And like, I kind of had this like formula in mind. And I know you asked like how many sessions and how many.
I
don't have the number.
No, that's totally fine.
I just knew that these were the parameters that I work with when I look at my schedule. I didn't want to work holidays. I knew that I had to work weekends. And if I worked weekends, that means I don't want to work most of the week. And then if I'm working during the week, it would be editing. And that means I would need to be able to get the editing done within windows of times that my kids were at preschool or like briefly at night. But I had set this I'm not so strict on it now just because I'm in a completely different season of everything. But back then, I made a strict, like, I won't stay up past 8 doing work. Like, I just won't. Like, I'm not, and once the kids are asleep, I'm going to sleep. Or I'm taking a shower, or I'm doing something for me. Like,
you're not just working.
Because that was the burnout before, was like, I was staying up till 3 or 4 in the morning, and then the kids wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning. And, like, that's just not sustainable. That's not how you should live your life. That's not, like, I don't know why I told myself that. I almost, like, wore it as, like, a badge of honor. I'm doing this. Like, girl, go take a nap. Like,
Yep.
Like, it's not that important.
Yes.
And so I just think that if you're starting from ground zero, putting, like, I know it's easier to think like I'm going to bite off little pieces and eventually I'll get there. But why do that to yourself? Just start off where you want to be. Because if you can't start off there, or at least like life, like, I just feel like it's all about perception. So if you feel like, hey, I can't charge this much right now, well, have that on your website and then make a portfolio that you're proud of so that you can justify that pricing when that time gets there. Or like, who knows, maybe you'll be shocked. You have that price listed. You can't book what you don't sell. And that also was another thing that like was a big, I don't know, in 2022 or 2023 when I moved here and started figuring out everything. You can't book what you don't sell. So actually, what am I saying? So in North Carolina, adventure is not the same as it is here. Like, we're in the PNW.
This is the place to be. This is
everybody, like, you grow up and you're like, like this is, but North Carolina, there's adventure, but it's just very different. And so I had started Mountain Minis in North Carolina, and my audience was like 4 hours from the mountains. And I was like, he's going to do that. But then I was like, well, I can't book what I don't offer.
Yeah.
So I did it. And I had like my first mini event. I had like four or five families, like four, maybe 3 or 4. I can't. I like can see their faces.
Yeah.
I can see their families. And they drove. One of them ended up getting a hotel. A few of them did round trips. And I ended up having a few events afterwards. But like that's an 8-hour drive where they were like, I'm going to do this with you.
Yeah.
And like, wow, like I've never done that. If you don't just, you don't know what people, like they knew that I was excited about it. I've already done it. And that's another thing. You need to be excited about what you do. Like this is, if you're not working a 9 to 5 and you're doing something that's supposed to be a passion project or hobby. Can you see my air quotes?
Yeah. We'll make sure to put that in there.
Be excited about it. People want to work with people who love what they do. And we get this gift to literally be doing what we love to do.
Absolutely.
And so I don't know. I think that can get muddled when you start talking about pricing and when you look at things black and white. It's like, but does this bring me joy? Yes. Making money for my family also brings me joy.
Yes.
Being able to put my kids in soccer and you know, because none of that's cheap.
No. Well, what's it all for if you're not making money from it? If you're just making a little bit of money here and there, like, and you're working your ass off. Like,
also, every mom is worth more than Starbucks money. And that is literally, it makes me so mad. When I started photography in Germany, I literally was working. I remember this was literally my motto for booking sessions. I wanted to make enough money to go to the Java Cafe, which was the German cafe, and I wanted to make enough so that I could buy my kids 2 chocolate milks and myself a coffee. And so I could get some brand name grocery items at the commissary. That is literally why. That was my why. Was go to the Java for coffee. I want some brand names at the grocery store. And I just like, sweet girl, you are worth so much more than that. Like my time and it's and like sure that brought me a little joy, you know, when you know, like, oh my gosh, I'm making my
I got the Kraft macaroni and cheese.
Like that was exciting. It was like I get all of that. That's my story. That's my testimony. But like I don't want other moms to go through that.
No, that's
you are
great.
Worth more. You are worth more.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think it's so funny because you accidentally can sometimes fall into, well, I mean, gosh, let's go here. You can kind of fall into this default parent mode of your business is this. How's your little business? Air quotes, you know, how's that little business going? How's that side project you're working on? How's that hobby? How's that thing? But when in reality, that's your business. You are building this business. You are working hard to build this business. And for other people to not maybe see it or understand it or understand the entrepreneurial life, you know, I'm curious, how have you navigated that quote unquote default parent life where your business, and I know this is going to be different. I'm just prefacing that it's going to be different. Everybody's situation is different with their spouse. But I'm curious, how have you navigated that? What's your mindset around the default parent, where everything kind of falls back on you? Your job, you go pick up the kids.
Being a mom is my job. And then I have the opportunity to be a photographer. And so like for our situation with Tim being military, like during the day, it's me. Like they can't call Tim.
No.
And like JBLM, like, that's like 45 minutes from where we live. So like he's really not coming home during then. But when we live, even like in other, like when we were in North Carolina or Germany, like they're doing things all like they're in the field training, they're in missions and all the things. Like he's not
picking up his phone.
There's not like we're not doing so. That I think that's also why I work with families because they're very understanding and just because they are also in that life. And that's kind of why I've never made weddings my niche or my bread and butter ever, because how do you tell a bride that your toddler has a stomach ache? Or how do you say, hey, they have a fever, I can't come shoot your wedding? Like that's not a conversation you're having. And so I've just starting this business as a mom and knowing that these are already the parameters I'm working in, I think that's also changed the niches that I've decided to work with. And I'm always very transparent with my couples when I work with them. Like, I'm a mom and like things happen. These are my backup plans. Like if something were to happen, because I know that if they're sick, Tim can't just take off work to go and, you know, and like with anything, just before this podcast, I got a call. Hey, the kid, you need to come.
Yeah.
What a mom boss episode.
Yes.
Like,
hey, Bailey, I'm going to be a little bit late. That's totally fine. I get it.
And so like, it just, I think for me, I've already been living in it, so there wasn't much change. But I will say there's one area where I'm not the default parent, and that I think has made a really big difference. And you can see my smile right now because like I feel a little guilty about it, but honestly, I don't. My husband does bedtimes. Like he is the default parent for bedtimes, and it is very hard for him. Like to begin with, I don't think it was, but like my youngest Jude, he is a daddy's boy. Like literally, he will freak the F out if I try and do bedtime with him. Like, and when he is gone, like when Tim has a 24-hour shift or when he's in the field or like whatever, luckily, knocking on wood right now, he hasn't been deployed, so we haven't navigated that. So like at most, it's been like a couple weeks. I don't know, it's probably been longer, but like I forget, you know, blackout. But it's really tough. Like Tim's the default parent. So Jude, like when we transition into that, like it's a whole thing. Like that is, and it's hard. Like it's really, really hard. But I'm very, very appreciative that he is. And I think there is also something to say that like adventure sunsets, like in the summer, that's like, I'm taking photos. We're starting at like 8:30. And I'm not getting home until like midnight, sometimes later. And so like he does a lot of bedtimes. Like sunset is at bedtime. So I think that has kind of been the trade-off. But I know that when the kids wake up until whenever he gets off work, which sometimes he's worked really late, you know, and so I do think bedtime has been a way for him to like connect with the kids too. Because he is like a very hands-on dad. He's very active. Like he hangs the moon and the stars for my kids, like for our kids. And so like I am the default parent because I have to be because of our job. But like as far as everything else, like I don't know. And the kids go back and forth. When I was nursing the kids, like the kids wanted nothing to do with him. But it was like the second I weaned, I was chopped liver. Like who cares that I made them and like
it's fine. I like made you from scratch, like with my body, and then kept you alive. It's not a big deal.
Nourished you for a year. Who cares? Like,
it's fine.
Everything's fine.
Oh, I love it. I mean, it's and so your mindset shift, and I really liked how you said that. You're like, I'm a mom first, and then photography is how I make money. And I mean, I think that that's such a good identifier for yourself and such a good reminder for a lot of moms listening, because I know it's, you know, you're on social media. We're all on social media, and we see, I think a lot of times we live in a society that was not set up
I know where you're going
for
with
working
this.
mothers. We are not in a society that's set up. We are still working the same way as if women are in the home. You know, like we
have a village.
And
hiring help didn't cost a mortgage or a car payment or whatever. Like and so like nannies and baby, like that just was never a realistic option. Because I was like, I'm doing this so I don't have to. Like here's I can be with my kids, and so we can like juggle bills, and so we can do all of these things. Like if I'm working too much and so much that I need to hire, like.
It wasn't working. Well, I'm curious, as you navigated these different locations that you've lived while having kids, how did you find a village? If you did, how did you find a village? Like if you needed to have somebody watch your kids or have support during like the PPD, like you've got like anxiety and depression and like overwhelm and things like that, and Tim's gone, or I'm just curious, like, how did you find that village with each relocation?
So North Carolina had a photography group, and I ended up finding friends through the photography group. And so we would meet up, and one of a few of them, I mean, they're like still my besties. I talk to them often. And I just think it was just that vulnerability of like, we were all moms and we were photographers, and then we met up and we did the things, and then you start sharing life together. And I think that's the biggest thing is inviting people into your messy. And like none of us had, I don't know, it's like I don't want to, I'm just gonna say it, like none of us had like the best house or the biggest house or like all the things, like I don't know, it was just they knew if they were coming to my house, it was going to be chaos. It was going to be loud.
Yeah.
Things were going to be slimy, and like the kids were going to be jumping
everything was going to be sticky when they left.
Yeah, and like we went over to my friend's, like we would go over to my friend's house, and my kids would like scale her deck and like literally like the little banisters, and she would be like, what? Karina, what are your kids doing? I'm like, I don't know.
Are they being safe? Well, no, they're not actually.
But they'll learn. Like,
Yeah.
no, they're gonna.
It's fine.
There's a video. Yeah, it's just like those moments of like just being like, she accepted me,
Yeah.
I accepted her. Like we were different, but like we had started having holidays, and like you have to remember for military and like Germany, like, and I guess also this is more to Germany than North Carolina too. Like when you're military, you are your community.
Mm-hmm.
And like in the States, it's different. Like even here, we're the people that I'm going to be talking about. We have family here. This is where we grew up. So our military experience at JBLM is much different than probably a majority of soldiers and families who come here. But like North Carolina, we knew of people where they had family and they would go off on the weekend and they'd be with their family. And we're like, we don't know anybody. And like our neighborhood was also really active. So that was really like another sense of like community. But in Germany, you don't have that. Nobody has family over there.
Yeah.
You are what you got, like in that community, which like there's pros and cons to that. And I've always had friends in the church in Germany. There was a hospitality house, West in a Lane. They were like a godsend, and like they just like literally and just finding community in that way, and like just having they were parents. They had 3 kids, and so many families that like we're all going through the same thing where we have these little kids or bigger kids, and we're like, we just need a breath. Like, we just need to be able to like, and
can I like do my dishes really fast?
Yeah. Or like, so something that I like when we lived in Germany, when we had moved 3 times when we were in Germany.
Oh, wow.
It
wasn't just like you were in Germany. You moved 3 times
so
while
when we
being
got there though, we lived on the 4th floor. I had over 60 stairs with 2 kids. We're talking car seats. We're talking like just to get like the trash, like bringing the trash to the dumpster. Like it was just a whole thing.
Yeah.
And like just getting the kids out of the house, like to the car would take.
Yes.
Because they want to do every single step.
Yeah.
Like,
of course.
heaven forbid we carried them ever. And so that was not.
Wow.
That was, a lot. And then, so we ended up moving, and I don't know, that's another story.
Yes. Get out of that place. Oh my gosh, it sounds like a nightmare.
But it was a nightmare, but it was also very renovated and beautiful.
Yeah.
And like literally I felt like I was living in an IKEA showroom. Like, but also 60 plus stairs.
Yeah,
like,
that's a lot of stairs.
One way.
You were getting your steps in, girl.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I want to talk a little bit about, okay, so you seem to have a very good perspective, a very good head on your shoulders. You seem to take things in stride. I'm curious, have you struggled with having a positive, sunny disposition at all? How have you gotten through that? Because it seems like when things come your way, or like when something is thrown in your direction and you're facing this obstacle, it seems like you do a really good job of like analyzing it and like getting over that hump, especially for someone who has ADHD, or is it even diagnosed? Are you diagnosed?
Not diagnosed.
But yeah, it's
like,
we know.
We know.
But yes, absolutely. So, and so navigating through that, I'm just curious. Just tell me a little bit more about all that.
Yeah. So when Tim, my dad's military also.
Okay.
And so when Tim enlisted and when we went to our first duty station, my dad was like, one of his pieces of advice was like, hey, everybody has something going on. Like, you're not special. I was like, thanks, Dad. And he was like, you're not special. Like, people, when you get somewhere new, everybody has their own circle already. They all have things going, and they all have real like to-do lists. They have real needs. Sometimes they'll have family, so they are really doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And so he just was like, nobody owes you anything, and don't take it personal. Like if somebody like, if you feel like you've been written off, or like you just feel like cold-shouldered or whatever, like just don't take it personal. And I think that was like such an amazing piece of advice. And I've taken that for my business too. And like, I've kind of morphed what he said, and I like just know that nobody owes me anything as business owner. Like, I am in control and in charge of the success or failure of what I do. And I just also, I'm not always this positive ray of sunshine.
Yeah.
Like, and for people who I can get, I don't know, just my like sense of humor, and I can be down sometimes, but
Oh,
also like
yeah.
life is too short. I
Yes.
think that's really what when I get through these like periods of time where I'm just like, man,
Yeah.
God, please, like,
Yeah.
can I get a break?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I just,
Especially like you guys had quite a little run there just even
oh,
recently. So it's
yeah,
like, yeah.
it's just, yeah. And I'm just, can we just like, I just remember that everything is temporary.
Yes.
And like, even if that sounds, I don't know, like not great, like everything's temporary, everything. And so if I don't like it, just wait it out.
Yep.
And then next thing I'll know, I'll be like, oh, wow, this is what I prayed for. This
Yeah.
is what you know. And then don't be too busy so that you miss it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that, and like just having Tim and having that like circle of like, okay, I know that everything will be okay.
Yeah.
I know that we'll make it through, or like whatever it is. Like, it's just being patient, which, you know, military, the famous words are hurry up and wait. And like, there's been so many seasons where like right now, we're in a hurry up and wait situation. And so it's just, I don't know. Life is too short to carry that weight of negativity and everything.
Yeah.
Even though it's easy, I think it's easy to add all these layers of like resentment or layers of bitterness, or why is this working for her and not me? Why does she have the time to work out and I don't? Why, like all of these things that we can start like,
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's just like,
They can pile up.
yeah. And we're in control of all of that.
Yeah.
Like, that's the weird, you know, we get to, and so I think that's another thing, is that mindset shift of all of our priorities look different. And so like the things that I was finding myself like having like some negative connotations with, I'm like, I have to accept that I can't do it all.
Yep.
And I have to accept that my priorities are different than some other people's. And I need to be okay with that, because like with what was it, Keisha from PW Live, where she was like, you have to be with yourself, or no, or was it
be present where your feet are, or like,
or you're with yourself all day, every day. Like you know, you have to like yourself.
Yeah.
And so just being okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, everything else.
Yeah. It's just noise.
Goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. When I said, you know, like your ray sunshine, you know, it's okay for there to be cloudy days.
Yeah.
And I think that it's like your overall presence is very like warm and accepting and welcoming. And it doesn't mean that you have to be a golden retriever all the time. It's like, okay, you've just got this, I've got this attitude. And you know, you are also a medical mom. And so, and that has shaped, I mean, it's shaped a lot of your perspective, I'm sure.
Like, talking about that.
I know.
Like,
I know. I want you to bring that up. Like, talk a little bit about the medical journey that you've been.
So Jude he's my 5, almost 6-year-old, and he has Bardet-Biedl syndrome, and that's a rare disease. And he was diagnosed through genetic testing, and it was in January of 2020. And so he wasn't quite 1 yet, and we just moved. Like, we had no idea. They had given us a few ideas of what they thought he might have, because he was born with extra digits, so he had 12 fingers and 12 toes. And some other abnormalities that they were like, alone, this isn't a big deal, but altogether, that's what prompted the testing. And so when they got Bardet-Biedl syndrome, they were like, this isn't what we were expecting. And like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it just happens to be something where Tim and I carry a recessive gene, and it just happened to make Jude. And it's like I don't remember the statistics. Jude's our last baby, so they like told all like if we had more babies, and we're like, where?
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, yeah, no.
Yeah. 3, we got 3. We're Gucci. But just for Jude as a baby, I just think time and time again what a blessing it was to have a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Because I'm in this group now where some of the kids or adults, they're not getting diagnosis until late teenage years or until they're adults and they've lost their vision. Like, think about everything being okay, and then you lose your vision. You have no idea why.
Yeah.
And so that's something Jude, he's considered blind. He has really good functional vision, but he essentially sees out of 2 straws. He has no peripheral vision. So he can't, like, if he's looking straight ahead, he can't see waist below. He can't see above his head, and he can't see left or right. And so that was one thing that, how does a toddler tell you that he can't see? Like, that's his, like, he doesn't know, but he doesn't know.
Yeah.
And then he also has chronic kidney disease. And so it's something else. It's not to the stage yet where we're like closely monitoring like dietary needs, but it's definitely in the back of our heads of like, we need to be encouraging a healthy life and an active life, because this could easily get to a point where like Jude might need dialysis, or he might need, and something else with Bardet beetle, obesity, like truncal obesity specifically, is something that's fairly common, and they have a slower metabolism. And then they also have this hormone that doesn't tell them that they're full. They're just constantly hungry. And that might be why they don't meet certain milestones, because they're thinking about when's their next meal, even if they just ate or are currently eating. And so like Jude's kind of moderate in the grand scheme of what could happen. And he's definitely a big guy.
He's so freaking cute.
He's my little linebacker.
Yeah, he's so cute. I can't even.
And he just has like, and that's something that I've realized when I hear other kids with Bardet beetle syndrome talk, they kind of have similar voices, and it's just so endearing. Like, it's just high pitched, like they get so excited, and it's just like, I love it.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot there's just a lot of medical, there's a lot of doctors, there's a lot of, he was sick and that was another thing, like he has a small airway, and so that's not like a thing, but he just gets sick all the time. And so essentially Bardet beetle affects the alleles of the cell. And so that can affect like the cilia and how, and this is like literally the pulmonologist just put this together like last fall of like, he doesn't effectively move mucus. So like, that's why he might get sick a lot, because it's just sitting in his lungs, or it's just like literally. So imagine having this baby, this 1-year-old during COVID.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
with 2 older kids, like with 2 just still toddlers, but
and
still.
Then, and this baby who just starts coughing, like hacking, like sounds like a 50-year-old smoker from this. Because Jude wasn't always big. He was actually failure to thrive. So he was really small to begin with. And that was a whole other situation, which is like not the hallmark of BBS, but we knew how to, we could clear a park. I'm like, guys, like he's not sick. He has a chronic cough.
Yeah.
He is not sick. Like he is not. And that wasn't in the height of things. Like that was not an acceptable answer. And it was really hard going into it for a while, because he just coughed all the time.
Yeah.
And he still sometimes will get a cough, and you're like, how is that coming from your little body?
Yeah.
Like, but it's much more regulated now. But I just think that like full circle things of with Jude and being a mom of 3 and them being so different, just I have always been type A. It's my way or the highway, perfection driven, like high achieving oldest daughter, all of the things. Yeah, I can't live like that with kids.
Yeah.
And so it really, I just think that I've like the last decade being a mom, like I've just completely changed just with my mindset of things, because you have to, like I had to adapt. And I realized that my way wasn't the right way. And like, it's okay if things don't go according to plan.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. Nothing, it's fine.
Yeah.
And that, can you hear the drama? Because that was not always fine. Like,
it wasn't always fine.
I just like, I had this vision of like, my kids are going to be in the cutest little clothes, and they're going to be perfectly manicured, and they're going to be so well behaved, and they're going to this and that. And I'm going to be this Mary Poppins mom. And like,
you have your hair done every day.
It's going to be like, I'm going to be fit. I'm going to be like all these things. And like, nobody tells you that like, your kids might just not want their photos taken, like legitimately in their car. And they might hate dresses. My daughter hates dresses. Or they might hate like all these things that I just was not prepared for, that I fought for a really long time, like more than I want to admit. And then it just clicked. It's not about me. I am in control of me. I get to make these choices for myself, what I wear, what I do. I don't get to do that for my kids. They have opinions, and they will tell you their opinions, very, very loudly and proudly.
Yeah.
And Thea's my little alpha female, and Cadman, he just is the beat of his own drum. He's going to be a dentist or he's going to be a tattoo artist. Like, there's no in between.
Could be both.
Or he might
both have a drill.
Or
both are using some kind of utensils.
Yeah, the only kid that's ever, he loves a dentist.
That's amazing.
He hopes he has cavities so he can go to the dentist because he wants to.
Oh my
just
God.
the whole thing. And he runs a lot. I don't know. It's just, they're all like, and I just have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, and now he, like, Cadman's a typical boy. He, like, wears basketball shorts and, like, a graphic t-shirt. And I'm like, gosh, can you literally wear anything else?
Yeah.
This is comfortable, Mom. I'm like, okay, but can I buy you these cute Zara sweatpants? And he's like, no, those aren't cool.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, they are.
You're like, please.
Wear them.
These nice neutral with, like, maybe some plaid. Like,
no.
Absolutely
and,
not.
Like, it's just, I don't know. I think if any moms feels the, like, mom guilt that, like, they aren't trendy or fit in a box enough, like, it doesn't matter. Nobody's gonna remember.
Yeah.
Like, if you asked me from the Mom Boss meetup last year with all of our kids together, could I tell you what anybody was wearing? No. I have not a clue. Did they have fun? And do they talk about the lake and the trucks and the going off this, like, yeah, they love all of that, all of the play. Nobody cares what you or your kids are wearing.
Yeah.
And if they do, find different people.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. I have one more question about how you got the name Light and Armour Photography.
Yeah. So from my kids, what's really funny is I can still perfectly imagine we were going to a Baptist church in El Paso, Texas. If you would have ever told me I would be going to a Baptist church in Texas, I would have been like, I have gauges. And at the time I didn't have tattoos, but, like, I did not know. But that was an amazing church and, like, family and another community. Finding that just happened to bring us there. But I remember sitting in the pew and I had, like, been wanting to have my own business. And this was, like, in the days of mom blogs. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So I was, like, trying to figure out what business did I want? What Instagram title did I want? What, like, and I was pregnant with Cadman, and Thea, her name means light. And I was pregnant with Cadman. I didn't know if I was going to name him Cadman yet, but I felt like we were going to name him Cadman. And Cadman means warrior, battle. CAED is the warrior battle, and Cadman's, like, yeah. And so it just came to me while I was sitting there in this Baptist church in El Paso, Washington, or oh my God, El Paso, Texas. And it was like Light and Armour.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's a name. And I was, like, thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, light, because Thea means light, like goodness. Well, I guess Thea is more like that. I just remember thinking that the essence of Thea's name is light, like brightness.
Yeah.
And then Cadman, warriors need armor, they need a shield. And I was like, and actually, I wanted to make candles at one point. Have we mentioned that I'm like, I wanted, and so I could picture, like, the, like, armored silver plate on this candle. It's like, light armor. Like, it's the candle of the light. And then, candle making was not for me. And so I was like, light and armor, that's so cool. So
and it works for photography, light. And
so it was just like, and then Jude, he kind of is a puzzle piece after all of this.
He's the plus sign in the middle.
Yeah. And Jude, that means, like, to rejoice. And I think that's what I love doing with the photos and rejoicing with families. So I think he was the perfect ending to the name.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
I always thought about, like, going back to my, I think I was Karina Beck for, like, a second. Karina Beck Photography. And I was like,
yeah.
I love the name, but I'm like, I'm a quirky person.
Yeah, I love it.
I need some stuff.
Oh, I love it. It's perfect. That's so cool. That's fun. I had not heard that before. That's awesome. Well, I want to ask a couple fun questions. Actually, I want to ask one more question before we get to the fun question. So Karina will be our speaker at our Galentine's meetup on February 26th. She'll be talking about intentional Instagram and helping moms show up authentically on social media so that they can mom bosses specifically, so that they can, show up authentically on their social media. So I want to talk to you. How did you get into that? Like, what prompted you to have that as sort of like a side passion in addition to your business?
So, as you can tell, I'm a yapper. I love written word. I love that. I feel like I've always had a knack for articulating myself. As a mom, that ability has like vocal words have been really, really hard for me. Like, and that has actually been a big identity crisis for some like portion of the last 5 years, in particular of like, I just can't get my words out. And like, I have let me write something. And I think that I really am. And I feel like that's what has brought success to my brand and being able to market myself in the different areas that we've been to. Cause I've had a business in Germany, North Carolina, and Washington. And really, I didn't know anybody anywhere. Like, sure, Washington's where we're from, but as far as starting a photography business, I didn't know, like, everybody has gone and moved too. Like, people, everybody has their own things, like I said before. So I just think that that articulation piece of, like, knowing who I am and being able to say that with purpose on my Instagram and through my posts and in my stories and kind of all, like, in just my bio too, like, I think that that has brought me success. And then just seeing other moms or other businesses and like seeing maybe the gap of like, I know you in real life and you are super cool. Why are you showing up like this on social media? Like you like are me. Like I can see it all like in my head. Like, I can see it all. And so I think that I just feel really passionate about this part because I think everybody, and especially moms, I want to give them that, like, if they have something that they're passionate about and can provide for their families and they're just missing the words, I can help fill in that gap. Like, and if it's just that, like, that's all I needed was a few words, like, that's huge. That's like livelihood. And so I'm really excited for this workshop and this presentation because I just hope that I can help however many women are there. And I hope that just to authentically bring ideas for them, for their brand and their business.
Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. Well, and speaking of the Mom Boss community, I'm curious, what drew you into the Mom Boss community? What was it that when you heard about it or you were interested in it, what was it that kind of like made you?
I think firstly, just the idea of community. And like we had met briefly and connected with McLean.
Only like a couple weeks prior to that, which is cool.
And so I was like, well, Bailey seems really cool. And so I'd like to support her with that. And then Kaylee, I remember, I think we had carpooled together. So I was like, okay, at least I know somebody. And I'm like, well, what else am I doing? And like in the community, I had very low expectations, if I'm being honest. And then I showed up and you had like all the things. You had things to take home. You had you had things on things on things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's like legit. Like this isn't just mom bosses. This is like something like, I don't know. So you hooked like from that first meeting in March, like it was just like, what you do is so special.
Oh, thank you.
And it's just high value. And that's like, we all only have 24 hours in a day and really not even that because we need to sleep. Please sleep, fellow moms. And so I think that you just bring like such a light and high value for everything. And you just have like this special way of connecting people. And so
thank you.
I think that's what drew me to this community is just like seeing and supporting you, like number one.
Oh my gosh.
Everything else is like a cool bonus. I love it all.
Well, I obviously made it because I was like, I needed community. Like it felt, it's one of those things where when you become a mom and a business owner and you just, people are different. Like not everybody gets it. And so, I'm glad that you're a part of it. So thank you for being here. I'm so glad you showed up to that first meetup and then pretty much everyone since. And I'm excited for you to be our speaker in a couple weeks. So I wanted to ask a couple fun questions. Okay. What is the most recent thing that you've listened to? Could be a song, could be a podcast, could be an audiobook.
I was probably listening to a podcast on the way over by 100% Crime Junkie.
Oh, okay.
Well, I have like my podcast, my like safe podcast that I listen to, and the Crime Junkie or Park Predators or really anything from the Audio Chuck like house. Or this one might get a little bit more hate. So but Sword and Scale is another like
I don't know that.
And it's probably because he's a little crude.
Oh, okay.
They're long episodes, and when I'm driving, they're like over an hour sometimes.
Okay.
And so like when I have all these long drives, I know I'm like, okay, I'm one Sword and Scale episode away.
Yeah. Okay.
Something like that.
You're like, oh, let me find one. Okay, that's 58 minutes. Awesome. I have 59 minutes.
Yeah.
Bam.
Yep. So like that. And definitely with the Super Bowl being yesterday, I might have played Not Like Us.
Yeah. You're like, I may have had Kendrick Lamar on repeat.
Might have.
Love it. I love it. That was an amazing, that was a cool halftime show. Okay. And then I want to know, when is your birthday?
June 29th.
June 29th. Okay. So I like to read these little books. I want to see if it's accurate or not. Okay. And if it's not,
I'm excited. I remember you doing this for Gina.
Yes.
So
oh my gosh. You're like, I hope she does that for me. Okay. You are thoroughly conscientious and intelligent, concerned with carrying out faithfully any assignment you may have. You are eager to help family and friends, of which you have many. You tend to worry too much and be pessimistic. Okay, tell me, how do you feel about that? It's only a few sentences.
I think it's spot on.
I love
the
it.
pessimism, I think, with me pre-kids.
Okay.
I think that it's an act. It's like I have somebody in my life that like I can just picture for being fully like Enneagram 7, if you do that.
I'm an Enneagram 7.
That
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she just like, there's no bad days ever.
Oh, yeah.
And like, so when I think optimism, I'm like, I have nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm somewhere between.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's like insane.
Isn't that cool?
Like,
it's pretty fun. I think it's fun.
I'm overthinker. How many voice memos did I send you?
Oh, I know. You were literally like, sent me like 3 voice memos, just like, okay, I think I'm overthinking this. I think you use the word overthinking constantly. So I love that. I think
do you actually want me in your house?
Yeah.
Like,
You're like, am I good? Am I good?
By myself?
No, you're absolutely welcome here. But isn't that amazing? I love that. Okay, on the theme of birthday, what is like your go-to birthday dinner?
Anything sushi.
Sushi, yeah. What's your favorite sushi spot?
In Lakeland Hills.
Sushi Konami?
Yes.
Yeah. So good. Yeah. Okay. I love that. Okay. And then if you weren't a photographer, what would you be doing?
Yes. So my pipe dream is
I love it. I can't wait.
My pipe dream is to be an accountant.
Stop. Stop.
In all seriousness, the idea of having something consistent numbers, black and white, don't gotta think. Like, and having all that, I am really good at like detail recall. Like, I do really, really, really well with details. I struggle big picture.
Okay.
Like, and so
that is hilarious. Get out of it.
When I say photography was the very last thing that I could have pictured myself doing, like, I'm not exaggerating.
Wow. What a shift.
I could be an accountant.
Oh my God. I could never. Could literally never.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Amazing. I love that. Okay. So that's your like retirement plan.
Yeah.
Like when you're done, you're going to be doing accounting for fun. Like you're going to be like, hey, I'm done with my corporate job of being a self-employed photographer.
I'm going to go and do your taxes now. Like, that sounds great.
Stop. And oh my gosh. That is hilarious.
I could do it, right? I've actually
love that for you.
Like, could I go back to school and like,
no,
do that right now.
Oh, wow. I cannot wait to see when the kids are out of the house, you're going to be an accountant. I cannot, I'm going to keep tabs on you. Oh my gosh. Okay, perfect. Well, that's the end of the episode. This is a long one. This one, how far is this going to get us? Like this episode, it's about 80 minutes as of now.
Goodness.
Where's that driving us to?
80 minutes.
It's like into Clealum?
That's like, or past Tipsy.
Wenatchee?
I can get to Tipsy faster than that. Sunrise?
Okay.
I could get to Sunrise in an hour.
All right.
20
Perfect.
Ish.
Let's make this we've got this. But anyway, tell the people where they can find you, what you're up to, maybe like what's next for Light and Armour Photography. And
so if you don't follow me right now, Light and Armour Photography on Instagram, and I spell armor ARMOUR like a knucklehead, but it's fine.
We love it. It's fancy.
Yeah. And then I also have Artistry by Light is another Instagram, and that's where I will be putting more education, trying to split the two between my photography and the education platforms, but that's like where presets, and then I'm finally putting on my making sense of soft proofs. And in my brain, I'm going to have my basic camera course on there also. I was a part of another platform, and that's another podcast.
Yeah, we'll have another podcast about it.
But now I get to represent myself on my own platform. Yeah. So that's a gift. I love that. And so you can find me both those places. And then like I'm on Facebook, but really find me on Instagram.
Yeah.
Find me on Instagram.
Yeah.
I am not on I am on TikTok. I am not on there the way you think I am.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Oh gosh, TikTok's I'm such a geriatric millennial. Like I'm like I don't get it.
I like TikTok in the way that there's videos and like voice, like it's a voice memo-y, you know? Like the idea of texting anybody, please just call me. Like literally, if you are
I'm an
like,
audio message girly.
send me an audio message on Instagram. Literally, I will love that. You will make my day.
I love it.
But
Well,
thank
gosh,
you.
oh my gosh, thank you. This was so awesome. I'm so excited for people to hear this. So, well, thank you, Karina, and thank you everybody for listening. And we will be back sometime soon. Okay, bye.